good Wednesday morning. Sal Licata in for Boomer. Mike Fliegelman in for Al Dukes. Big Zoo in for Eddie Scazzeri. Chris Lopresti, we will talk to in a little bit, in for Jerry Recco. The deadline is over. I think we felt a lot better about what the Yankees did prior to today. At least I did, because of the last trade that they made that I don't know if it's going to impact them that much. It was just a little strange. But today really is about what the Mets didn't do and how much that will impact them on a run to a potential championship. Now, once the deadline ended and it was Darren Ruff and it was Michael Givens, I was completely pissed off. Absolutely pissed off. So much so that I reached out to a guy who was always my cousin, who's always trying to talk to me about the Mets. And I'm like, listen, watch the show. Call the show. I don't want to talk to you about the Mets for 4 hours after the show. I actually reached out to him and started yelling at him like he was Billy Epler. But as time went on and I started thinking about it, I thought about some of the other paths that were going on, and if I were Billy Epler, what I would have done. And the fact that Wilson Contreras and J.D. Martinez weren't traded at all made me feel a little bit better about it. And the fact, too, that I never thought that Juan Soto was coming to the Mets in the beginning made me feel a little bit better about it. Josh Bell being in that deal pissed me off. But I still feel really good about the team. So I'm conflicted this morning about what this team can accomplish. I guess the thing that really annoyed me the most is I'm watching the Phillies get better. I'm watching the Braves get better. I'm watching the Yankees get better. I'm watching the Padres put together this unbelievable team. And I felt like the Mets got marginally better with what they did. So I'm definitely cooled off a little bit from where I was yesterday. And I guess the game last night didn't necessarily help at all. Watching Jacob deGrom come out, and he's phenomenal, which is the most important thing, but they end up losing and not scoring. But I'm a little bit in a better place this morning thinking about, what Billy Epler saw and what he didn't do and for the reasons why he didn't do it. The thing that I guess the one trade, the David Robertson trade, is the one thing that he could have pulled off. Right. That's a better option than Givens. But, I mean, it's here we go. This is it. This is your team. These are our guys. This is the run to a potential World Series. Nothing else is going to happen. And for better or worse, here's your roster.
Yeah, I was less angry, just dejected and disappointed. Yeah. Because I was excited all year long. Steve Cohen, Mets, big team in town. Let's go get it. Let's be aggressive. Let's make these splash big moves. I was anticipating it. I thought they were going to get a big bat leading up to the deadline. I thought they were going to get 2 arms at least in the bullpen, and they didn't do it. Now, to your point, the reason why I'm not angry is because, all right, I understand it. Look, here's the reality. They added a 36-year-old right-handed bat. Yeah. It's embarrassing, dude. Darren Ruff. When you look at the other teams that made moves and the Mets get Darren Ruff. However, on the field, when you look at it production-wise, it fits what they needed. And you can't tell me that J.D. Martinez definitively would have been better than Ruff will be with the Mets for his role. It's similar, right? So I don't know what the exact thing they would have to give up for Martinez, whatever. With Contreras, I didn't really want Contreras anyway. And then I heard some bad things about him even before.
Like what?
Well, not a good clubhouse guy. We knew he wasn't really a good defensive catcher, but I heard something, not a good clubhouse guy.
So another Javi Baez situation, potentially?
Potentially worse. Right.
Worse?
Yeah, I think so.
Wow.
Potentially worse.
Well, that makes me feel a little bit
better.
Well,
think about it. He didn't get traded. I mean, and Gio, they had... he scrubbed his social media. He had his big goodbye, hugging everybody.
And now he's back.
Now he's back.
I know.
Talk about embarrassing. That's embarrassing. So I think there's something wrong with the Contreras part. I just didn't love him as a fit. If he's going to be a catcher upgrade, fine. They were selling him as the right-handed DH. I just didn't like that fit. The one guy, you mentioned Robertson. That's an issue. And he goes to the Phillies to boot. But the one guy to me that would have been a difference maker that they could have had was Josh Bell. Now, I don't know if they could have had him because the Nats clearly didn't want to trade Soto to the Mets in the division. And was he always going to be part of that package so they could get a bigger return? But that after looking back at it, the one impact guaranteed big time bat was Josh Bell. And it's just, I'm disappointed that the Mets again come up with Naquin and Ruff and Givens. It's like the bargain bin again.
No, I know, and that's exactly how I felt when it first happened. And I was like, this doesn't feel right. This doesn't feel like the new Mets. This doesn't feel like the brashness that I thought we were going to be. But then I thought about, well, all right, so why do you feel that way? Because you wanted them to go all in. You wanted them to push the chips in the middle of the table and say, this is the year that we're going to chase a championship, and we don't care about the years down the road. But the follow-up question that I don't think enough people are asking, that I had to ask myself yesterday, I was keeping myself in check, was, all right, what was that all-in move possible for them? And I don't think that it was. Yeah, it's annoying to watch the San Diego Padres load up in the way that they did, but the Mets weren't going to do that.
Well, that move wasn't there for them.
Right,
That's correct.
that wasn't going to happen.
But what about Josh Bell? You don't think that
But the problem is he was in that deal.
Well, let's say...
And it's the same team that didn't want to trade Soto there, so they want to trade Josh Bell to the Mets? Like, I don't think so.
If you told them you would take on some Corbin salary... They would have.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying that they should have to go that far, but I do think it also, one other thing I was thinking about here was that I don't think Steve Cohen is going to spend as much as people think. Like, he could have said, you know what? Let's improve our ball club with Josh Bell. Let's take half of Corbin's contract, or whatever. Nobody else is going to be willing to take on Corbin.
Yeah.
So even half would have been better than nothing. I'm assuming the Mets might have been able to. Now, I don't know, but do the math. I mean, you don't think they want to get rid of that contract?
No, of course they would. But what's more important to them, though? More prospects and a bigger haul from the Padres, or getting rid of that contract? Because adding Bell to that deal got them even more than they would have with Soto alone.
But it's still Soto that they're trading.
Yeah,
like, you would think the return is big. Anyway, my point is, I don't think that Steve Cohen is willing to go out there and just take on bad contracts to help his ball club. We're going to go out there and get every free agent. Like, I don't know if it's realistic, but the idea of that, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, so you're telling me that the luxury tax is something that he is paying attention to?
I think he's going to be aware of knowing that, hey, look at all the free agents that the Mets, like, there's a lot that goes into it. It's just, oh, yeah, let's take on another $30 million in dead money so I can improve my ball club. So and look, the splashiest moves aren't necessarily the smartest moves or the best moves, which is why, like, I get it. I think we kind of agree. Like, I understand they did improve the ball club. Thank goodness they got Givens at least a bullpen arm. They need to do something.
I need to get a lefty there, too. That's another thing we left out.
And how does that happen?
Yeah, I don't know. That to me is egregious. The fact that they didn't bring in a left-hander. I mean, even Keith said it in the open of the game last night, like when they're talking about it, like he was critical right off the bat, like really surprised they didn't bring in a lefty reliever or at least someone who is good against lefties. So I guess that is an issue. But you sort of just made the point, like if Steve Cohen isn't going to take on a bad contract like that, like maybe the path to Josh Bell just wasn't there.
Right.
You know, so, I mean.
They're not giving up a top prospect, as they already said. You know, the Nationals thing is tricky because it's in the division. But the Mets said flat out, we're not giving up top prospects.
Yeah.
Which means the only way they could get in a true impact difference maker of a player would be what? To take on money. And they didn't do that. And I thought that for sure they would do that with Chafin, let's say, from the Tigers. And by the way, do we know if he would have been a difference maker? We don't. Like, whatever, with these bullpen guys. You have no idea. But it would have been something. And something is better than Joely Rodriguez. They need a lefty reliever.
Yeah, it's surprising that they feel like they can go to work in the postseason with a bullpen that really doesn't have a single guy that you feel comfortable against lefties. Like, there's not, I mean, Buck Showalter is one of the most meticulous managers there is. And he doesn't really have that neutralizing weapon in that bullpen against a big lefty that you would like when you're chasing a championship.
Right, and I don't know if they're going to try to make it David Peterson. I mean, I think signs point to that, or somebody else, a lesser guy in the organization. And I don't think it's going to be the dude that they got in the trade that they made, with Naquin deal or whatever his name. Like, come on, these guys are not very good. You can't be going to the postseason. But remember, their bullpen will look different. Assuming that the starting rotation remains healthy, their bullpen should be pretty loaded because you're taking Tyler McGill, you're taking one of the other starters, whether it's, let's say, Carrasco, you're taking potentially Peterson, putting him back there. I mean, you're not going to go deep in the bullpen. You're hoping the starter's going to go 6-7 innings anyway. You're going to be able to use guys regularly. So it's an issue. And look, maybe it's a bigger issue trying to hold off the Braves and win the division than it is actually when they get to the postseason.
Yeah, I mean, that's another question, too. But, Jacob deGrom pitching the way he did, and I understand that he was, on a pitch count, an inning limit, everything last night. But it sort of put a spotlight on this idea that so many fans had, and if I heard it one more time yesterday, I was going to break the remote over my knee, which was, the biggest acquisition you could have is Jacob deGrom. First of all right, he hasn't been here for a year. The team has been great without him. And you just were proven again that the guy can be spectacular and you still lose games.
To the Nationals, who are sending out an embarrassing roster.
Completely depleted. Guys, there was some guy who made his major league debut last night at 30 years old who never should have seen the big leagues in his life, but because the team was just completely torn apart, he got his major league debut last night. I mean, it's like that right there just proves to you. I mean, how many times have we seen him be great and the team can't score runs for him?
Hate it.
It's not all like having him is a great boost. Don't get me wrong, but it's not the be-all, end-all thing that is going to put them over the top. They're having their best season, second best season in history to this point, and he wasn't even there.
Right.
So, like,
and he's coming back. And look, I get it with him. I mean, he could be the best pitcher in the world, and I get it in the postseason, but he's coming back to an area of strength. They don't necessarily. I mean, I know you can say that you don't have enough starting pitching, but their starting pitching has not been the problem.
Yeah, right.
It's the bullpen. It's
exactly.
the lineup.
This is.
And think about this, Gio. They were, and I was talking about this last week. They're about to launch. The Rockets about to launch here. I felt good going to the Yankee series. They were starting to. You could see they were getting some guys back healthy. The trade deadline, having not a comfy lead over the Braves, but still a lead over the Braves, being able to hold them off. I felt like the worst was behind them. 7 in a row. Going into the deadline last night, DeGrom coming back, what happens? They half-ass it at the trade deadline. DeGrom starts, but they lose a game to the depleted Nationals. The Braves spanked the Phillies. Yesterday was a bad. I'm not angry. I'm depressed. Now, you want the good part of it. To your point, you look at the odds, and I was doing this on the Superbook Sports app, just checking out the World Series odds for fun. Just to see what it was after the deadline, it's still like if I give you the teams, there are 5 or 6 teams that could still win. Oh, that's it, and the Mets are one.
Oh yeah, of course they are.
So like I know or some people are going to be angry and ticked off with Epler, and I get it. I'm frustrated and depressed. But when you look at it realistically, Yanks, Dodgers, Stros, Mets, Padres, Braves, behind that Brewers, Blue Jays. I mean, they're one of 6 teams with a legitimate, realistic chance.
Oh
to win
yeah,
a World
and I feel still very, very good about this team today. And I feel, and every minute that goes by, I feel better about what happened at the trade deadline, like I said, because I don't know if that deal that we wanted was actually available with the market that was presented to Billy Epler. I didn't love his press conference.
That's terrible.
I mean, that was a tough one to take. I mean, it really is amazing. There's so many guys. Maybe the Knicks do have it right as much as I criticize them. Like, don't put your guys in front of the media because all we're going to do is destroy you. But, I mean, like from Brody to Sandy last year spitting all over himself with the DeGrom thing to now Billy Epler and how weird and, like, cocky he was yesterday and just, like, I don't know. It came across a little bit swarmy to me. Like, I didn't like that at all. Like, there's just so many guys in this town that, like, don't know what to say. You know what I'm saying?
That's why you got to give Cashman.
Cashman always, and he stands in front of everybody, he answers every question. He was honest about the Montgomery thing.
He's a freaking genius.
Yeah.
And all he is honest. And think about this. Brian Cashman actually got a top 15 prospect back for Joey Gallo. That guy's a damn magician.
Right. That is unbelievable.
He trades Jordan Montgomery, which when I first heard, I was like, what? Why would they trade Jordan Montgomery? And he gets a guy potentially in Bader who could be a... Look, the Yankees needed a defensive center fielder. Move Judge to right. They don't need any more offense. Bader could be that gamer type in the postseason, defense and center field. Brian Cashman ran circles around Billy Epler. Remember, this is his student, right? Cashman's. I mean, think about it. Look at all the moves the Yankees made to improve their ball club. That's the best team in baseball, getting a top-of-the-rotation starter, 2 arms in the bullpen, an outfielder who's an all-star, and an outfielder who can play center field. I mean, and they dumped Joey Gallo.
Yeah,
I mean, it's unbelievable what he did.
Yeah, the Montgomery thing, though, I think they did because Brian Cashman alluded to this yesterday, that they wanted to add another starter and really time kind of ran out on them. So I think that the Montgomery thing, maybe if he had a chance to do it over again, he might have not done it the same way. But especially when you're trading for a guy that you don't know is going to be healthy or not. I mean, plantar fasciitis is one of those things that lingers around. He's in a walking boot right now.
For what, like 7 weeks? Or
yeah, I mean, so it's just a little strange, especially when you know that Severino. I mean, you move Severino to the 60-day IL. Herman stinks. It's just.
But apparently Severino, it was just a roster thing, right? Where
but he's not allowed to come back until September 15th, right?
Well, I mean, they needed to give him rest anyway because you can't have both him and Cortez.
Yeah.
Guys who you're worried about innings or whatever wearing down when they're going to be making a push to November. So I don't have a big issue. I know Severino might be frustrated. As long as he comes back healthy by September, I think they'll be fine because he's got to be a part of that rotation.
I don't know if you feel the same way. Sometimes I think that we focus way too much on starting pitching when we're talking about postseason success. Like, when I think about the Yankees and the reasons why they have lost.
It's their bats.
Yeah. And I think about some of the best teams in recent memory that the Mets have had. I mean, obviously you go back to 1969 and the pitching was the thing, but we're in a different era now. But, I mean, if you think about, the pitching sometimes.
Like Braves last year, hitting home runs left and right to win a World Series.
Even the Royals, when they won a World Series, they're starting rotation.
Right.
How about the back-to-back years that the Texas Rangers ended up going to the World Series? You probably couldn't name 3 of those starters.
Right.
I know Cliff Lee was there being okay, but sometimes it really is, this is such a cliche, but I mean, it really is all facets of the game that matter.
Right.
And I think we put such a premium on the starting pitching when there are guys that essentially come out, like Bobby Jones threw a one-hitter for the Mets in the playoffs.
Right, Jeff Suppan shut the Mets down in 2006.
Game 7, yes. I mean, it's like these guys, you can get great performances out of guys that aren't Madison Bumgarner, Jacob deGrom. You can get great performances out of those guys.
And we've seen the Yankees, James Paxton going an inning or whatever it may be. And I know that they may have lost that game, but the point is they lost it because of the offense, not necessarily because they're starters. That's why it's nice to for me, the way that I would always build a team, I want to have that ace atop my rotation, and I want to have the back end set, 8, 9. Sure. Those, to me, are the most important things of a ball club. You don't need 3 or 4 or 5 aces. Now, the Yankees, Garrett Cole has to answer some questions in the postseason because he hasn't been that dominant ace. We know the Mets should be covered there, whether it is Scherzer or DeGrom, but it's the other pieces. Look, the Mets have a solid team.
Yeah,
the Yankees have a great team. Mm-hmm. It's a matter of putting it all together, I guess, in the postseason. It's not about one area. So, look, if Severino doesn't come back, does that impact the Yankees really?
I don't think that much. No,
well, that's what I mean.
Really don't. I mean,
maybe
it comes down to playing better baseball than the Astros and the ALCS.
Well, and Judge has got to do what he's. He's got to do what he's doing in the regular season. Not just him, but he's been the main guy.
Sure.
They got to do what they're doing in the regular season. In the postseason, that's something the Yankees haven't done.
Right.
The offense bludgeons people in the regular season, and in the postseason, they get shut down by good pitching.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, seemingly every year, they get beat by a better team and they don't hit. I mean, that's what has happened.
Luke Voigt, MVP type season in the pandemic shortened year.
Right.
Postseason against the Rays first series, he does nothing. That can't happen.
Right. And every time that they lost one of those series, I felt like they weren't the better team that choked. They got beat by a better team. Like whether it was the Red Sox, the Rays, or the Astros, I just felt like they weren't as good. But this year, I feel like they are the best. Like this would be the year now where if they lost in the postseason, I don't know, the Astros still, I might say that they're the better team.
But still, they can't lose to the Astros this year.
Not again.
Minimum, really, they should win the World Series. That should be the expectation. But get to. Like if the Yankees get to a World Series, I don't think we could rip Cashman, Boone, or anybody else.
And I feel like if they got to the World Series, they got a real good chance of winning it because it would have gotten through Houston.
But I do think the National League is tougher, right? And by the way, that's another thing that plays in the Mets' favor where if they win the division and finish in the second seed, you would avoid the Dodgers, Braves, Padres until the NLCS. You only have to play one of those teams.
It's absolutely critical that they win the division.
Think about that. Just one of those teams.
Right. I know.
Not that there is no easy path in the postseason to watch the Brewers go out there and beat them or whatever. But still, you don't want to have to go through that gauntlet of Atlanta, San Diego, L.A. 2 of those teams. You'd rather take the easier path.
Yeah, I love the fact that the division winners and the seeding and that matters a little bit more because, you used to feel like, the winning your division and being like the 1 seed in the league, you should get a better reward for that than the home field advantage in a best of 5, which used to be what it was.
Right.
So now it's different. I mean, now you're avoiding, if you're that 1 seed, you're the best in the league, you're avoiding that 3-game series altogether. You're able to at least capitalize on, what you've been able to do over 162 games.
But in this particular case, the Dodgers are going to get hurt a little bit because the way the wild card lines up, and I guess the no reseeding. Yes, you're right. If you finish the top seed in your league, it's nice that you're rewarded and have the bye and you get up the line. You're pitching up, all that stuff. Same thing with the Mets being second. I guess that's how it is. There's really no other way to change it other than the bad break of the seeding, right? Where the Braves are. The Braves aren't really a second-place team. I guess that's the issue because they're better. And the Padres, they're both going to be wild card teams, hopefully, and they're both better than the Central Division winner.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's going to be unbelievable when we get there, and you really want to see an NL East championship for the Mets. All right, just getting started on this Wednesday morning. Sal Licata in for Boomer Esiason. It is Boomer and Gio on the Fan and CBS Sports Network.